The green flame, one of the most mysterious and most alluring entries into the Jurassic franchise. Its connection to the films is highly debated, as it comes from a comic line called Return to Jurassic Park. It serves as one of the many possible sequels that could have happened after the events of the original movie. One of its surviving threads is a concept of a mysterious green flame that is hidden somewhere in the forbidden jungles of Isla Nublar, and is said to have some miraculous powers. But what do we know? What do we not know? Well, let's take a deep dive into the Return to Jurassic Park comic series and pull everything that we do know to help answer this question. Then I'll share a theory that I have come up with, combining a few different portions of the Jurassic canon into one cohesive story that I think you will love. It includes a certain part of the backstory to Jurassic Park, the game. So, what is the green flame? To be honest, we still don't actually know. I have my own theory, which I will get into later in this video. But before I get too deep into that, let's take a deep dive into the Return to Jurassic Park comic series and pull everything we do know about this mysterious green flame. In the first comic, we see that a soldier is being rescued at the beginning, and he's constantly muttering, "Green flame, green flame, green flame." When they land on the island, they decide that they must get to higher ground in order to look for it, the main characters. The dinosaurs start acting strangely in its presence. The military knows of it and had abandoned their original job, which was to secure the island, to study it. Also, this one ends with random outbursts of green flame beams, and upon seeing them, the viewer is stunned and cannot move. The next time we even see anything about it is in the third comic, and that the military has set up a base surrounding its last known location. So just 6 things that we really know about it. But what do we really know? This leaves a lot to be desired. Really, we can break it down this way. Randomly it sends out beams of light. It has a strange effect of temporary rage by animals that are exposed to it, and humans become entranced by it. So, what is the backstory behind it? Maybe we might be able to bring up some answers. In an interview with the writer, Steve Englehart, of the comic series, he was asked, "I recently read all the JP comics and now I'm dying to know, what was the green flame? My best guess is that the island was being turned into a kind of Area 51, and the green flame was the result of experiments on a recovered UFO. But then, it kind of seemed as if the base from which the green flame originated was under the control of a renegade military rather than just the US Army that was ostensibly in charge of the island. Maybe my guesses are not even close. Here's the answer that was given. You're basically right. It was primarily an homage to Joe Staton, who drew those issues and had previously drawn Green Lantern Corps with me. The GLC, of course, uses a green power, so the specifics of the green power in the Jurassic Park were left deliberately vague. Though, as I say, that's pretty much what I had in mind. The Army was officially in charge, but the secret group studying the flame was operating behind that cover for security reasons. Hope that helps. We kind of have an answer now. The pieces are coming together. It was meant to be a loose reference to the Green Lantern Corps. In the DC universe, the colors of each lantern mean Yellow equals fear, white equals life, violet equals love, red equals rage, indigo equals compassion, orange is greed, black is death, blue is hope, and green is willpower. This is definitely an interesting addition to the Jurassic franchise. However, I'm not exactly sure how this realistically fits into the overall story that we have. I believe I have a way to have this not only fit into the Jurassic continuity, including the 3 main details we have included above, but also answer some of the more mysterious parts of Nemo's backstory that are mentioned in the infamous Jurassic Park the game. What if the Tunsi people's Awa used the green flame in his singing ceremony to Mount Sibo in order to calm the mountain's rage? Before I get too deep into this, the story is not to be considered canon. I merely wanted to write a story trying to link the green flame to the Jurassic franchise in a better way now that we have an established storyline put out, as well as supplementary material like Jurassic Park the game and the Masrani Global website, which properly connects the Tunsi people to the greater story. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the village in a warm, golden glow. 2 figures, Alejandro and Adriana, stood at the water's edge, contemplating the journey ahead. The air was still, carrying only the distant cries of exotic birds and faint whispers of the ocean tides. Alejandro held the small wooden boat steady as Adriana climbed in, her eyes reflecting the fiery determination that burned within her. The boat's hull barely kissed the water as he pushed them away from the shore. They began to paddle out into the open sea. The rhythmic splash of their oars punctuated the quiet and gentle reminder of the urgency that propelled them forward. Adriana had been chosen by the village elders for her knowledge of ancient lore and her unshakable resolve. Alejandro, a skilled fisherman, had been heralded for his bravery and unmatched navigational skills. Together they would embark on a quest to save their village from an impending disaster, guided only by the cryptic words of a prophecy passed down through generations. The horizon grew darker, the last vestiges of daylight retreating before the encroaching night. The stars began to emerge, twinkling in the vast expanse above like the eyes of unseen watchers. The boat sliced through the water, driven by the promise of the prophecy and the hope of their people. As they ventured further from the safety of their village, the air grew cooler, carrying with it the scent of adventure and the hint of unknown. Adriana looked over her shoulder, her gaze locking with Alejandro's. In that moment, their shared resolve grew stronger. A silent pact to face whatever lay ahead. They set off on the wooden canoe, the soft splash of the paddles against the water creating a rhythmic beat that seemed to echo the pounding in Alejandro's chest. Each stroke brought them closer to the first station, a mysterious set of lava tubes that sprawled beneath the Earth's surface. The air grew thick with anticipation as they approached the gaping maw of the tubes, the flickering torches inside casting eerie shadows across the water. Upon reaching the entrance, the village Awa, or leader, met him, holding a torch aloft in his left hand and wearing binders, shading his eyes from the harsh glow coming from the torch. The torch he was holding was already lit, and it was lit with an otherworldly glow. The flame not that of normal fire, which is that of brilliant orange and red. No, this flame was green. This flame was one of unnatural powers, one that would cause one to go into a trance if they were to stare at it for too long. Alejandro, too having a torch, his unlit, took his and met the one that his awa held. Their torches met, and the flame carried on to his. The flame burned with vibrant, unworldly light. The smell of unnatural fire was faintly sweet, yet it carried an underlying hint of something ancient and powerful. The awa put his free hand on Alejandro's shoulder and said,
"My time as the village awa has come to an end. It is your turn, my son, to do your sacred duty. You must traverse this great island, Guasi, to reach the place of singing. You must sing to Sibo. It is time to soothe the Ancient One. Appease him, my son. It is what you must do to take my place."
Alejandro was met by Adriana, who traveled with him to the lava tube. She was there to aid him in his first journey. The awa's job was to sing to Sibo. She was to keep the melody for the songs for the awa. As they ventured into the tubes, the flame cast an emerald glow on the jagged walls, revealing intricate patterns of mineral formations that looked like frozen waves of the molten rock. The journey through the tubes was a silent one, the only sounds being the footsteps and the occasional drip of water from the ceiling above. The flame grew brighter with every step, illuminating the path ahead while casting monstrous shadows behind them. Alejandro noticed that the air grew heavier, and he felt his head start to swim with the potent fumes of the flame. He stumbled, but Adriana caught him, her grip firm and reassuring. "You're doing all right," she murmured, her eyes never leaving the path ahead. The flame grew hotter, and Alejandro felt his vision blur. Strange shapes danced at the edges of his sight, whispering secrets in a language he couldn't understand. It was as if the Bay had come to haunt him, but they didn't appear like the Bay his father had told him about. They looked more like animals. They appeared more like the tapir, the talok, the dakur, and other animals he hadn't quite known how to describe. He staggered again, and this time, when he looked at Adriana, she was gone. Panic set in, and he called out her name, but the echoes bounced off the walls, taunting him with emptiness. The hallucinations grew more intense as he delved deeper into the earth. Alejandro saw ghosts of his ancestors long past, their eyes filled with accusation and hope. He stumbled over rocks that weren't there and felt the brush of invisible hands guiding him through the labyrinthian path. The lava tubes twisted and turned, the walls closing in on him until he could almost feel the heat of the Earth's core against his skin. The air grew thicker, the flame's light grew dimmer. Alejandro knew he couldn't go on much farther, the fumes from the flame threatening to consume him, yet he pushed forward, driven by the determination that burned stronger than the green fire in his hand. As they emerged from the tubes, the night had fully descended, the stars twinkling like distant candles in the vast velvet sky above. Alejandro gulped down the fresh air, feeling his mind begin to clear. The flame still burned, though it flickered erratically in his trembling hand. They had completed the first trial, but the true test was just beginning. The goat path and Sibo loomed ahead, each promising a new set of challenges that would push him to the brink of sanity. Adriana's voice brought him back to reality. "The flame is weakening," she said, her own breaths coming in ragged gasps. We must hurry to the cenote. Alejandro nodded, his resolve strengthening. He tightened his grip on the flame, ignoring the hallucinations that clung to the edges of his mind like cobwebs. Together, they set off into the deep, dark jungle, the path illuminated by the wavering green light that seemed to dance with the shadows of their fears. The goat path was a treacherous climb, the narrow trail snaking its way up the side of a sheer cliff face. The vines and rocks were slick with dew, and the air grew colder with each step. The flame grew weaker, casting a sickly pallor over everything it touched. Alejandro's heart raced as he clung to the rock face, his muscles screaming for rest, yet he knew that rest was a luxury they couldn't afford. With each breath, he felt the flame's power seep into him, a potent mix of energy and dread that fueled his ascent. As they reached the crest of the ancient goat path, Alejandro felt a massive exhale, which seemed to quiet the nature around him. No longer could he hear the familiar sounds of the muhupa or the mololbi. All he heard was a faint, ever-growing rumble. Adriana began to ask what was wrong, and next thing he knew that the ground opened up. A great deep abyss had been created between them, and with a great hiss, there was a pillar of green fire that erupted from the earth below. This time the flame was unworldly. It didn't behave like fire. It was almost as if it was water bursting forth from the ground, but clearly it was still a flame. Adriana this time was captured by the force of the flame. Being encaptured by its presence, the torch in Alejandro's hand lit up once again with a fierce fervor for life. Before she could be subdued by the force of the flame, Alejandro shook her out of it, saying, I need you for the sacred ritual. I can't have you being subdued by its power. Let's carry on. They disappeared into the jungles and started to make their way to the next of the obstacles that lay before them in Sibo. Finally, they reached the cenote, a natural pool nestled within the mountain's embrace. The water glowed with a bioluminescent blue, a stark contrast to the emerald light of the flame. Alejandro could feel the spirits of his ancestors watching him, their whispers echoing off the cavern walls. He took a moment to steady himself before plunging into the water, the cold liquid shocking him back to reality, the flame somehow never being quenched by the water surrounding it, the unworldly powers keeping it alit. Alejandro dared not question it and carried on with his task. The underwater world was serene, a silent ballet of fish and plant life. The flame's light pierced the darkness, illuminating the path to the other side of the cenote. As they swam, the fumes from the flame grew stronger, painting the water with swirling patterns of green. Alejandro's thoughts grew disjointed, the line between reality and illusion blurring. He saw the faces of his loved ones in the fish that darted around him, their expressions a mix of fear and encouragement. They emerged from the water, gasping for air, shivering from the cold. The path grew steeper, leading them to the base of the volcano. The volcano's ominous presence loomed over them, its peak lost in the clouds. Alejandro felt a tremor in the ground, a gentle reminder of a fiery beast that slept beneath their feet. The final stretch was the most perilous yet. The path grew narrow, with only a single rope bridging the gap between the jagged rocks. The wind howled, threatening to snuff out the flame. Alejandro took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on the rope. He knew that if the flame went out now, all would be lost. With trembling hands, he took the rope. The wind grew stronger, the rope swaying like a serpent's tail. The flame flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced in the volcano's fiery glow. Alejandro's vision swam with images of his village burning, the people he loved most crying out for his failure. He gritted his teeth and pushed the thoughts aside, focusing solely on the task ahead. Adriana followed closely behind, her own breaths shallow and rapid. The flame's power grew more potent with every inch they climbed, whispering dark secrets of the world's creation and the fate of those who dared to challenge the gods. Alejandro felt a weight pressing down on him, a burden that seemed to increase with every step. The platform at the summit was in sight, a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. The air grew thinner, and the flame burned with an intensity that seemed to scorch Alejandro's very soul. He stumbled, the rope biting into his palms. With surge of strength, he pulled himself up onto the platform. The volcano rumbled beneath him, a low growl of anticipation. Alejandro knew what he had to do. He raised the flame high, the green light piercing the night sky. He took a deep breath and began to sing the ancient song that had been passed down through generations, his voice carrying on the wind to the heavens above. The flame roared to life, casting the volcano in a brilliant emerald hue. Adriana began to whistle the ancient tune alongside her new awa. As she whistled, she watched in awe as the volcano's peak began to glow, the fiery lava pulsing in time with their song. The spirits of the ancestors swirled around them, their whispers growing to a crescendo that seemed to shake the very earth. The air grew hot, the pressure building until it was almost unbearable. And then, as if the world itself had taken a deep breath, everything stilled. The flame grew calm, the lava ceased its dance, and the ancestors' whispers faded into the night. Alejandro's voice trailed off, leaving only the echo of the final note hanging in the air. He felt the weight of the flame's powers diminish, and the hallucinations that plagued him retreated to the shadows of his mind. The silence was broken by a deep and guttural rumble that seemed to come from the very heart of the volcano. Slowly a bay of myth and legend emerged from the fiery depths. It was a beast unlike Alejandro had ever seen, a creature of ash and flame with eyes that burned like amber. The creature's presence was palpable, the heat of its gaze on their skin as it regarded them with a mix of curiosity and challenge. It was unlike any bay he had ever been told about in legend. It reminded him more of a taluk. The creature spoke in a voice that resonated throughout the night air, the words ancient and powerful.
You have raised the tombs and the power.
It intoned.
You have brought forth the flame and sung the sacred song. But are you truly worthy of the task ahead of you?
Alejandro's heart pounded in his chest. He faced the creature. The flame in his hand had dimmed to a soft glow, and he knew that the final trial was upon him. We come with pure hearts and desperate plea, he replied, his voice steady despite his fear. We seek to calm the maw of Sibo, to give him rest so that we may live in peace. The creature spoke, its symphony of molten rock and the roar of the inferno.
To save your village, you must give me something you hold dear.
Alejandro's heart clenched, his thoughts racing. What could they possibly offer such a being? Adriana stepped forward, her eyes never leaving the creature's fiery orbs. We offer you our fear, she said, her voice strong and unwavering. The fear that has driven us to this place, the fear that has fueled our determination. Take it. In exchange, grant us the wisdom to save our home. The creature regarded them for a long moment. the fire in its eyes flickering with what might have been amusement. Then, with a gesture that was both regal and terrifying, it reached out a hand of flame. Alejandro and Adriana placed their palms against it, the heat searing through them, consuming their fear and leaving them with newfound strength.
You have proven your worth.
The creature's voice echoed throughout the night, now a gentle hum rather than a roar.
The knowledge you seek is yours.
The air around them grew still, pressure lifting as if the very volcano exhaled in relief. Alejandro felt a warmth spread through his chest, and the flame grew brighter, the green light pulsing with a gentle rhythm that matched his heartbeat. Well, what do you think of that story? I have been slowly writing this over the last few months, and I feel that I have come up with something interesting and also respectful to the real-life Bree people and the Jurassic franchise as a whole. Let me know what you think down below. I would really like to hear your opinions on this, as I would like to eventually turn this concept into a short story and an animation all on its own. Anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can keep up with everything going on down here in the Ambermine. Also, if you like the content you are seeing, please consider joining our Patreon, where you will get all of our videos earlier than you would when they are released here on YouTube. Anyway, I'll see you all next time down in the Ambermine.